the stars will fall.
One of the things that I've always loved about designing for television is that each show is unique. There are designers who have a signature style. They apply it to every show they do. It works for them and they're sought out for it, but that's not the way I approach shows. I look for what is distinctive about each project and capitalize and amplify on that. One of the most interesting shows that we've designed is Splash, and I'm going to walk you through the design process on this, and I think it's a real illustration on creative problem solving. The first part of the process is to identify your stage. As part of trying to find a location to shoot this show, we first started looking at indoor pools at Long Beach, then further abroad outside of LA, we went to Ohio State, Michigan State, before finding out that swimming schedules, timing, weather, transportation costs all indicated that we needed to find a way to do this back in Los Angeles. And we wound up with an outdoor pool at Riverside. And this presents a new problem. How do we tent something as large as a pool so that we have the ability to control lighting and so on? One problem at a time. Once we've identified the location, been able to make a deal, we start looking at the details of that space. I was able to get a CAD plan of the pool. We were restricted to using only the diving end of the pool because the swimming team needed to continue their practices. And even then, we needed to be able to move scenery out of the pool on days we weren't shooting so that the diving team could practice. So with the location locked, site survey done, I start looking at where do I put the set. With a swimming show, the challenge is that 80% of your stage is water. So you really only have a narrow perimeter to accommodate scenery, all the activities, tech, audience, etc. This drawing shows the gross buildable area. Once we fit in the tent structure, shown here in the dotted red, we're left with even less buildable area for the show. And it's complicated further by two tall lighting towers on either side of the diving boards. Regardless, we now have all of our restrictions, and I can start laying out the functional elements of the show itself. Having talked through the show with my producers, I basically know the elements I need to design for. I need an entrance to the stage, exit after a dive and do a quick interview, a location for the judges from which they can see all the action, and a holding place for divers after completing a dive and waiting for the next contestant to finish theirs. Between all of this, I need to weave in approximately 200 audience. I like to design first and plan. If I know the plan works, then the elevations are going to work well too. In this case, the first fixed item is really the platform the divers climb out onto after a dive. This has to be in the water. It needs to be relatively close to their point of impact. So there's a finite number of places it can go. The judge's position has to be close to this platform so that there can be a dialogue about their diving performance. And then the talent holding area needs to be relatively close to the judge's platform so that they can have a dialogue as well as react to the next diver's performance. So this group really works as a trio and lays out diagrammatically relatively quickly. Now this leaves really only the entrance as the final design element to position. Well, I have 150 feet of pool edge to work with, so where does this go? Really, it only goes one place. As I design these projects, I have to think about camera positions. I'm often hired well ahead of directors, and between a combination of experience and common sense, I think about how a camera layout would work and what the shots are going to be. I have a huge venue with an awful lot of space that would need to be designed, and there's no budget for that much scenery. So I really have to look at what is the shot and what is the background for each shot. In the case of the entrance, we know that when a contestant climbs out of the pool, the host is going to be there. There's going to be an interview. There's going to be a conversation between the judges and the background we already know, and the host and the contestant. Well, that host and contestant need a background, and that's where the entrance is going to go. So that was the thought process on designing for all of the low shots. But this is a diving show. We know we're going to be looking up at the diving board. We're going to have cross shots. We're going to have shots looking out from the diving board. And all of these need to be tied into the scenic look in some way. So the challenge was to develop a scenery piece that could be accommodated in the sliver of a deck that we have at the bottom, but be big enough to make an impact up high. To that end, I created funnel-shaped pieces that created mid-ground at the lower level and were very narrow, didn't take up a lot of deck space, but they spread out and mushroomed up high where we needed a lot of coverage. Really, a very practical solution that came out very dramatically. Now, finally, I fit in the audience in the remaining space we have available, where it will also provide background for given shots and create an overall balance of enthusiasm in the room. So far, I've really talked about how we come up with the plan for this, but every one of these pieces has another layer of detailed design involved in it, determining the materials, the location of the projection screens, building lighting into it. And all of this stuff somewhat happens simultaneously. We're thinking about it as we're laying it out. We're thinking about it as we develop each piece. And each piece goes through numerous variations until we wind up with a look that we're satisfied with. For this show, it was natural to go with design features and language that played up water and had a fluid quality to it, ripply, shiny, reflective, flowing, and those are the elements that we tried to work into all of the various backgrounds. One of the coolest features we were able to incorporate into the show was this graphical waterfall by Pevnik Design. It works like an inkjet system that literally lets you create any pattern or text in a wall of water. A really neat feature. So although greatly simplified, hopefully this gives you an idea of what my design process is like. But it has to be said that this is not a process of one person. There is a huge amount of people involved, all of whom make it possible to do something as complicated as this. From my art directors to the staging supervisor, my producers and their ideas, the lighting designer who adds a whole level of creativity to the project. When we start a project like this, we don't know what all the answers are going to be. But we know that with the right team of people, there's nothing that we can't figure out. And we work through it, and we wind up with a truly spectacular product. Thank you for watching.